3, 2, 1, go!
Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, it is KingNido here, and today we are in the City of Fairies as the Belle and the Angels are taking on the Pony Canyon Fissure, and both these sides have a lot riding on it, as the Fissure are starting out this matchup the same way they started out their last one, starting with Swampert and Hippowdon. It is Sylveon and Primarina, who is part water type, starting out for the Belle and Angels, as Hippowdon with that Sandstream ability is going to make it super hard to get a thumbnail, but also the Fairy types will be taking damage in between turns, as both Fairy type Pokemon are unsuccessful in their first two moves. That Mach Punch won't be very effective from Swampert onto Sylveon, as a Vital Throw from Hippowdon also won't be very effective on Sylveon, who also takes damage from that Sandstorm, as does Primarina. Now the Belle and Angels sitting 9th place are just below the cut line. They want to get into the Masters 8 as Primarina is successful with the Sleep Powder onto Hippowdon, who's been having a very impressive season. See if I can follow that here today. Swampert with the laser focus, it is going to concentrate intensely. The Sylveon with the focus energy not going for the offensive move. Instead, it is going to be getting pumped, as Hippowdon is still fast asleep. Pony Canyon Fissure, though, after the last matchup that just happened, have been knocked out of the Elite Four. So if they win here today, they should get themselves back into there. But the Belle and Angels have been building some momentum. Swampert, however, with the Drill Run, will take out the Evolution with a critical hit. And that is exactly what the Pony Canyon Fissure want, not what the Angels want, as Primarina responds with a Power Trip onto its fellow Water Starter Pokemon, as Hippowdon is still asleep on the field, and that Sandstorm continues to rage, doing damage to the Alolan starter, as Gardevoir comes out and immediately goes for an Aqua Jet onto Swampert, who has that part water typing to prevent it from being super effective. But a Teeter Dance from Primarina will leave everyone on the field confused, even its teammate Gardevoir. Hopefully it doesn't do any damage to itself, but Hippowdon wouldn't even know it is still asleep. Swampert also being confused there, and it needs to shake it off here now. And it is unsuccessful, unfortunately, for the Fissure. It does do damage to itself, but Hippowdon doesn't even notice, still asleep on the field. It's Gardevoir and Primarina, the Fairy types, continuing to take damage. They need that Sandstorm to end. Here, Gardevoir needs to shake off its confusion, and it is able to, going for the Endeavor on the sleeping Hippowdon. Good hit there with that move, as Swampert is able to avoid a Heat Wave from Primarina, but the sleeping Hippowdon, not so much. Two really good hits there in a row on the ground type Pokemon, as Swampert with the Water Gun there onto Gardevoir, as Hippowdon finally wakes up, but now it has to contend with the confusion that it still has. It is able to shake it off, though, going for the Frost Breath on the Fairy Psychic type. Gardevoir taking 2 hits in a row there from the ground type Pokemon, and a critical hit there, as well as the Sandstorm finally subsides, which the Fairy types will be relieved of. But Gardevoir still in its confused state does do damage to itself. That is not what the Belle and the Angels need, but Swampert has actually snapped out of its confusion and goes for the Triple Axle onto Primarina. This gets stronger every time, and it will get all 3 hits. It's not very effective, but all 3 combined make for some good damage. But Primarina responds with a Floral Healing. It's clearly thanking Swampert, but who knows what for. Swampert gets restored back to full strength thanks to Primarina. They are not on the same side, Primarina. These are not on the water side, as a Magnetic Flux does fail from Hippowdon, and that confusion still afflicting Gardevoir, but it does shake it off and goes for the Bulldoze and hits everyone on the field, but it is not very effective. It doesn't do a great deal of damage, but it does lower everyone's speed, including its own teammates. It lowers both ground type as well, but Primarina now with the Mean Look onto Swampert, so Swampert can no longer escape, who responds though with an Ancient Power, going for Gardevoir there. A fantastic critical hit. Gardevoir is still able to hold on, as Hippowdon snapped out of its confusion and goes for the False Swipe onto Gardevoir. It holds in there, quickly catch it. No, wait, it's not a shiny. Gardevoir, though in its confused state, has eliminated itself. That is everyone's nightmare after going for a False Swipe on a shiny, I'm sure. Swampert, though, with the Air Cutter onto Primarina, who is becoming an easy target. Hippowdon avoids the Sing, though, and goes for the Anchor Shot. This should finish it off. Primarina is eliminated, and already half of the Belle and the Angels have been taken out, as Togekiss comes out on the field and is joined by Alcremie. Pony Canyon Fissure have had no eliminations, as Togekiss with the Brick Break on Hippowdon, and Alcremie with the Grudge doesn't even go for the elimination there. This is a terrible start for the Belle and the Angels. Fantastic for the Fissure, as the Mach Punch isn't very effective on Togekiss, but the brutal swing from Hippowdon hits everyone on the field. Swampert still has so much health left, as well as Togekiss with the Incinerate hits both ground type Pokemon. Hippowdon holds on though, not very effective there, but does get the critical hit onto Swampert and burns up both Pokemon's Leopard Berries. Alcremie though will go for the Power Gem, and finally Hippowdon is taken down with that not very effective move. The Bellamy Angels have an elimination on the board. Swampert though going with the Whirlpool onto Alcremie, who will be trapped in that vortex, so it is going to take continuous damage from the Whirlpool like has just happened right now. And now we have coming out for the Pony Canyon Fissure, Seismitoad. So we have two water ground types on the side of the Fissure as an Astonish from Togekiss hits Seismitoad, who responds with a Hyper Beam. And Alcremie is eliminated with that critical hit. Seismitoad coming onto the field and immediately having a hyper impact there. Swampert going for the Shadow Punch onto Togekiss. That was a terrible punch. As we have Grimmsnarl coming out, and Togekiss sets up a Psychic Terrain, which I'm sure Grimmsnarl doesn't mind about because it cannot be hit by Psychic type moves being part Dark type. What the Fairy types need to do though is definitely go for a Grass type move, as both Pony Canyon Fissure Pokemon are quad weak, instead of going for a Gust like Grimmsnarl just did. Swampert goes for the Thunder Wave onto Grimmsnarl, is going to leave it with that paralysis status condition. And Togekiss with the Hone Claws, it is going to boost its accuracy here as well as its attack. That could be a really fantastic play, but first Seismitoad with the Head Smash onto Togekiss, and it doesn't matter what Togekiss did because it is eliminated after that super effective attack. Seismitoad is on a roll, gets some huge recoil damage, but gets the elimination as Swampert with a Magnet Rise is going to elevate itself thanks to electromagnetism, allowing it to levitate. Now Grimmsnarl will vanish instantly as it is the last Pokemon remaining on the Battle of the Angels. There are still 5 Pokemon remaining for the Pony Canyon Fissure. It's able to avoid the Air Cutter and the Electrify from the Fissure, and Grimmsnarl going for the Phantom Force onto Seismitoad. Huge hit. Seismitoad able to hold on though, which is great because now it can go for the Guard Swap, so it will share its all changes to its defense and special defense with Grimmsnarl, as a Light Screen from Swampert will give the ground types a barrier for the special moves, but that Shadow Bone will finish off Seismitoad. So Grimmsnarl doing exactly what it has to do, but it still has 4 Pokemon to contend with, and one of them is Garchomp, who immediately goes for the Flying Press after coming onto the field, and that is a great hit there onto Grimmsnarl, which is followed up by a Zen Headbutt, which won't affect Grimmsnarl, again that Dark type and preventing it. But Swampert avoids the Dragon Rush, and surely you got to think if that Dragon Rush had connected with Garchomp, it would have been huge damage. But Garchomp with the Bug Bite onto Grimmsnarl, fantastic hit, as well as stealing that Leopard Berry of Grimmsnarl, thinking it doesn't need it for itself. But Grimmsnarl with the Pickpocket will take Garchomp's Leopard Berry. Swampert with the Tar Shot will make Grimmsnarl an easier target, 2 fire type attacks, but before that, after that, Grimmsnarl with their Sing will put the Pseudo Legendary to sleep. So much going on in this matchup right now. So Garchomp is asleep on the field, unable to do anything now. Swampert's been in since the start and now has no moves left, so it's left to struggle, and that will finish Grimmsnarl off. The Pony Canyon Fissure have come to the City of Fairies and absolutely dominated. This is fantastic for them, getting that victory, keeping the Battle of the Angels out of the Masters 8, but the Pony Canyon Fissure have moved themselves up to first place on the leaderboard. It's not very often you see the Olivine not in that position. This is huge for the ground types, and their next matchup will be against the Sir Chester Frost, so they want to try and keep themselves there. But our next matchup has the Hearthome Haunts taking on the Humalaya Cascade, and the Hearthome Haunts could very easily move up into that first place spot as well. And speaking of the Humalaya Cascade, next round, that is who the Battle of the Angels will be facing. But until our very next matchup, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below who you thought was the best on field, and if you enjoyed what you saw here today, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, you are awesome, and I'll see you when you see me.